Good afternoon, and welcome everybody to our voting rights protest rally. This is the first rally that we have. We'll have a whole lot of other things upcoming, I'm sure, in the very near future. I'm Pastor Ray Anthony Anderson Sr., along with my wife, First Lady Beatrice Anderson. We are the Soldiers of Jesus Ministry, where we're building an army for Jesus Christ. I'm going to let my brother go first. This young man, doctor, he's a psychiatrist. There's only 3 black psychiatrists in the state of Michigan. I said the state of Michigan, and he is one of them. I would say after Robert Bass, he was my best friend in middle school. We won the middle school championship at Bustle. It must have been in 70, probably in 70, 69 or 70, because we graduated in 71. Kurt and I also, if you remember, we made the All-Star team, you and I. We went against Robert Bass then, and we won. I had to hear Robert Bass say, yeah, Tom, you know, we got so-and-so, so-and-so, we got so-and-so, so-and-so, and y'all got Kurt and you, so we gonna beat y'all. I didn't say nothing. That's my boy. But we beat him. He was really highly upset about that, but, you know. But anyway, Kurt got to go. He's a very, very busy man. So introducing Brother Curtis Long, King Crusader. Went to Michigan when Bo Schemblecker was there. So he'll tell y'all the rest of the story.
All right, Brother Ray, I'm going to take off this mask. Thanks for this invite. That's all right. You still have your agility, so you yeah, speaking on behalf of voting out there, so crucial, was Pastor Anderson mentioned, I'm from the Detroit area, zip code as well, with Martin King High School, University of Michigan, Wayne State Mountain, Detroit training at Lafayette Clinic in Detroit Medical Center. What I'm doing now, I'm working in a lot of different areas, but my passion is working with youth, adolescent youth. I'm the mental health director of the juvenile detention facility downtown Detroit, which is the largest adjudicated facility in Wayne, actually in the state, so Wayne County, largest county. And I see a lot of different disheartening situations. A lot of dysfunction of homes, a lot of youth neglect. We see it on Fox 2, Channel 7, Channel 4. But you never really understand what's really going on. Why would this person, this kid, be involved in this situation? And despite whatever they're being charged with, my goal as their doctor is really, on their behalf, the family's behalf, no matter what the charge is, is really to take care of them, and at the same time, hopefully I'm instilling some insight, some love to them, no matter what the scenario may be. But in that, as a physician first, and then as a psychiatrist, neurologist second, yeah, I do have to write medications at the time. Sometimes I have to agree with a petition that a person may need to be certified for a hospitalization. But I'll just tell you, with those tools in mind in terms of medication and stuff, what I'm finding out is that the biggest tool that we have and what's missing is a sense of history. It can be used to increase the young one's insight. So it comes around to our rights. A lot of times, as we know, as individuals in our community, whether we have kids or not, sometimes you have to defuse a person's use of the First Amendment, or the right to speak. So how kids talk, in some cases, using the First Amendment of the freedom of speech, they'll wind up in a Hollywood show, Nick Cannon show, Wild and Out. We all know we used to call it The Dozen, but that's really an example of using your freedom of speech.
when it leads to some conflict, it's hard to tell the kid, look, man, what he's saying about you means that he doesn't know anything about you. The key is for you to gain greater insight about you. Then you wouldn't react to whatever somebody's putting out there about you. And we all know that, having grown up in the city, going to Buster Junior High School, and where we can kind of reminisce about the consequences of winning that championship. We have to deal with the consequences, and they were both verbal and sometimes physical. But using that as an example in terms of knowing your rights, and of course, the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery, I guess, on paper, and the 15th Amendment in terms of, various rights and things. So now we go into the 60s, but as we know that, because we lived through it, a lot of young people look at you like, what are you talking about? Voting right amendment. What do you mean an amendment? We don't have the outright right? Yeah, it's an amendment. They can re-amend it if they want to and take away our voting rights. So it is so crucial that we as adults, parents, cousins, and just people in the community in this village instill this sense that you have to use your right to vote, or else you're going to see everything become even more dismayed. I'm not sure what the actual statistic is in terms of how many registered voters we have in the city of Detroit, or for that matter, how many African American registered voters we have in the whole state. But we know it's not enough. And as all these demographics are being changed in front of us with district lines being redrawn, I can't follow all that. I try to do the best I can in the field of medicine, let alone urban planning, houses, and things like that. But for sure, it is not being done to increase our sense of power in terms of our voting and our need to vote. So I guess my message is that it's crucial that our people really use that right. It's been fought for. It's not something we have to read. We have to die and all those sorts of things, but we have to keep it going. Because if we don't, we'll see how where I work and with all the despair and neglect and abuse that occurs down there, it also is demonstrated in terms of the lack of treatment. This area, and kind of takes me back to some of the clinics I've worked at. There's a clinic that pastor of mine, Northeast Diet Center, Kelly Road. Well, Northeast doesn't exist like it used to. Now, why? Lack of funding as a direct or indirect result of people not voting. It's one thing to have the right to vote, but just imagine when we go into the voting booth, some of those amendments, who really knows what those really mean? You don't know if to vote this way on A or B. But even to get to that point, which means you realize you invested the vote, how many of us aren't just exercising that crucial right? I think for us it has to be a demand to the point where you have to demand that. And if you don't, again, like I mentioned, we see the consequences of it. Institutionalized racism is just what it is. And if you have a tool such as the ability to vote to kind of counteract that, or combat it, you have to use it, because when they say institutionalized, you people have to really understand what that means. It's embedded in the ground. People who have the power, they're not going to relinquish that power, period. Why would they? So my point today is that it's going to take a community effort, and we have to start at the grassroots level, because, I always say that, and this is the truth, I include myself, I don't know any education. None. Just think what it means to say I'm educated. I know about politics, electronics, astral space, all that. I don't know anything about that. I do the best I can to maintain in this zone in terms of the field of medicine and psychiatry and neurology to say I'm trained. So But in terms of this whole idea of voting, you know, you don't need to be educated about that. We already know it exists. And it's going to take all of us to really make a difference. So again, I want to thank Brother Ray, your family, for having this conversation. That we need more of them.
Oh, yeah.
And they need to happen in these small communities, in our neighborhoods, in these zip codes, to really expand on that. And look forward to the next one you guys put on.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll further expand on it again. Thanks a lot.
Oh, man. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, when I said that the consequences of when believe me, I It was a beat.
Appreciate it, Kurt, man.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Appreciate
man.
it.
All right.
Okay, you too, man. God bless. God bless.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I got a handful of stuff.
She got.
Did I get it? Oh, boy. Y'all had to excuse me. I ain't hardly.
Use iPhones or whatnot.
Yeah.
I never threw away my flip phones,
That's what my mom had, a flip phone.
I still have it. I showed you guys. Look, sometimes I give I say, kids, you know what? Have you all ever seen a phone that do that? I said, why would y'all just carry that? And then y'all just right. But yeah, I'm here.
I guess we gonna stay. Did we stay alive or no?
Still staying alive. Yeah, that was Brother Curtis Long, King Crusader, bust some boys off, neighborhood, Field Street, back in the day on Fields. And we appreciate him coming out. Busy guy, doing a lot of great things for our people. Because we really, truly need it. We still got people en route, on their way. And like Kurt said, we need to do more of this. Though this is a small audience today, don't mean a thing. Because we go right on doing what we're doing. I'm going to go into my notes of what I took that I want to speak about. And we're just going to go quickly. History of voting rights. History of voting rights. And as you know, in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, the United States found itself in uncharted territory. The right to vote was central to securing true freedom and self-determination. Slavery is not abolished until the black man has the ballot. Frederick Douglass famously said in May 1865, a month after the Union victory at Appomattox, a 1867 political cartoon, which was very funny, was made depicting an African-American man casting his ballot during the Georgetown election as Andrew Jackson and others looked on angrily. That was a funny cartoon if you want to look it up. After Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, the task of reconstructing the Union fell to his successor, Andrew Johnson, a North Carolina-born Unionist. Johnson believed strongly in states' rights and showed great leniency toward white Southerners in his Reconstruction policy. He required the former Confederate states to ratify the 13th Amendment and pledge loyalty to the Union, but otherwise granted them free reign, reestablishing their post-war governments. As a result, in 1865, most southern states' legislatures enacted restrictive laws known as black codes, y'all, black codes, which strictly governed black citizens' behaviors and denied them suffrage and other rights. Radical Republicans in Congress were outraged, arguing the black codes went a long way toward reestablishing slavery in all but one name. Early in 1866, Congress passed the Civil Rights Bill, which aimed to build on the 13th Amendment and give black Americans the rights of citizens. When Johnson vetoed the bill on the basis of opposing federal actions on behalf of formerly enslaved people, Congress overrode his veto, marking the first time in the nation's history that major legislation became law over a presidential veto. The 14th and 15th Amendments, what Dr. Kurt was referring to, the passage of the new Reconstructive Act over Johnson's veto in March 1867, the era of radical or congressional reconstruction began over the next decade. Black Americans vetoed in huge numbers across the South, electing a total of 22 black men to serve in the U.S. Congress, 2 in the Senate, and helping to elect Johnson's Republican successor, Ulysses S. Grant, in 1868. The 14th Amendment, approved by Congress in 1866 and ratified in 1868, the 14th Amendment, approved by Congress in 1866 and ratified in 1868, granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including foreign slaves, and guaranteed equal protection of the laws to all citizens. In 1870, Congress passed the last of 3 so-called Reconstruction Amendments, the 15th Amendment, which stated that voting rights could not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous conditions of servitude. Reconstruction saw biracial democracy exist in the South for the first time. Though much of the power in the state governments remained in white hands, like black votes, black officials faced the constant threat of intimidation and violence, often at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan or other white supremacist groups. While the 15th Amendment barred voting rights discrimination on the basis of race, the basis of race, it left the door open for states to determine the specific qualifications for suffrage. Southern state legislatures used such qualifications, including literacy tests, poll taxes, and other discriminatory practices, to disenfranchise a majority of black voters in the decades following Reconstruction. As a result, white-dominated state legislatures consolidated, controlled, and effectively reestablished the black codes in the form of so-called Jim Crow laws, a system of segregation that will remain in place for nearly a century. In the 1950s and 60s, securing voting rights for African Americans in the South became a central focus of the civil rights movement. While the sweeping Civil Rights Act of 1964 finally banned segregation in schools and other public places, it did not remedy the problem of discrimination in voting rights. The brutal attacks by state and local law enforcement on hundreds of peaceful marchers led by Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights activists in Selma, Alabama in March 1965 drew unprecedented attention to the movement for white rights. Later that year, President Lyndon Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act, which banned literacy tests and other methods used to disenfranchise black voters. In 1966, that's Beatrice's year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Harper versus Virginia Board of Education, Virginia Board of Elections, that the poll taxes, which the 24th Amendment had eliminated for federal elections in 1964, were unconstitutional for state and local elections as well. Before passage of the Voting Rights Act, an estimated 23% of eligible black voters were registered nationwide. By 1969, that number rose to 61%. By 1980, the percentage of the adult black population on Southern votes rose surpassed the rest of the country. The historian James C. Cobb wrote in 2015, added that by the mid-1980s, there were more black people in public office in the South than the rest of the nation combined. In 2012, turnout of black voters exceeded that white voters for the first time in history, at 66.6% of eligible black voters turned out to help re-elect Barack Obama, the nation's first African-American president, in 2013.